Hello, everyone, and welcome to Meowmix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven,
My name is Jerry.
and we are here to continue our draft profiles. A little bit of a different, uh, I guess, outline today. We're going to talk about three wide receivers.
Yeah, we kind of slacked off last week. We busy, so
Didn't slack off, just had a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm coaching my daughter's soccer team. That's twice a week and everything else.
Yeah, it's and both my boys are in soccer, and work has been ridiculous. So, just real life gets in the way sometimes. We're
Yeah,
not full-time podcasters as much as we might want to be. Uh,
yeah.
we have other things
I still
going
have
on.
time to do some of these draft like scenarios slash
Yeah,
looking at these guys. I have more guys in my head that I'm already like looking at. I'm like, oh, what about this guy?
yeah. I mean, in my free time, I'm doing mock drafts. I'm doing all that stuff, as are probably most people that are listening to this podcast. And it's getting to be that time. What are we like? What, three and a half weeks
Yeah,
away?
3 weeks away.
basically.
That's why we threw these three together. I can't say his name. McMillan,
Tetairoa.
TMac,
Tetairoa.
Luther Burton III, and Matthew Golden is who we are gonna be going over today. All receivers, because that seems to be the hubbub. Panthers Twitter and everybody else talking about, will the Panthers go after a receiver?
Well, it's an exciting pick, right? Everybody wants the sexy wide receiver, the skill player. We don't need a quarterback. We don't need a running
Thankfully,
back. Yeah, we don't need a running back. So wide receiver is the next most exciting player on offense. Um, it seems like most of the talk this week, though, from the Panthers themselves, has been Jalen Walker, right? Like
Jalen
it seems
Walker.
like everybody is talking about Jalen Walker. Canales is just, fawning over him. I saw an interview with Kay Adams where he was just couldn't say enough nice things about Jalen Walker. Now, Panthers Twitter's all over that. It's all Jalen Walker all the time right now. So we talked about Jalen Walker. If you want to check out our draft profile on him, we did a few weeks ago. We both liked him quite a bit. Um, if that is the pick, I think it makes perfect sense, right?
I do too. I think he could be that was one thing Canales did say in the Kay Adams interview, is that
Mhm.
everyone he talked to was talking about his leadership skills and everything. And then
Yeah.
I watched a couple interviews and I also saw what he was talking about, just the way he spoke. You got that feeling of people could follow that guy.
Yeah, he would be a great culture guy to bring in. A young team trying to build that culture. He would be an excellent addition. At 8 feels a little high based on most of what I'm seeing. But again, if you want your guy, you'll get your guy.
Uh,
I don't really care.
I was gonna
Like,
say, honestly, everyone we've talked about, if that's who
yeah,
they like, that's who they like. There's
yeah.
none of these guys. I'll put it this way: none of the guys we've talked about so far are bad players. I think all of them
Oh, yeah.
have great ability and everything else. There's obviously preference of choice, and whatever the coaching staff really wants, I would say go with, because none of these guys seem like big busts to me.
Yeah, I think they all are pretty safe floors. Even these three guys we're going to talk about today, like at
Yeah.
worst, you're going to get wide receiver two probably out of all of them,
Mm-hmm.
with high upside. So I think preference for me would be trade back and then grab any of these guys, or Jalen Walker, or anybody that we've talked about so far, really. Trade back would be my first pick. And then uh, anybody we've talked about would be perfectly fine to be my,
The only
to be picked.
problem with trading back is you have to get a trade partner. And
Yeah.
how far do you want to trade back? Because I'm sure they don't want to trade too far back, especially if they are really into Jalen
No.
Walker. Which,
Yeah, you would want to be in the top. I would say you'd still want to be in the top half of the draft.
oh, top 15 easily.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I told you in our text messages that I do worry that last year it was kind of released that Leggett was the guy that they really targeted. Lo and behold, they went and drafted him. I do worry sometimes that don't let all your cards out now. Like,
They can't seem to help themselves.
no.
Like they just get so excited about the guy. They just They just want to keep talking about him. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if Jalen Walker ends up becoming the pick. Then this is now a trend, and we'll know exactly who the pick is going to be
Yeah,
next year as well.
it was like
I mean,
a
are you concerned from a spoiler alert perspective, or do you think like they give up some strategy?
they give up some strategy because if
Yeah.
you're especially right now, there's really two good offensive tackles this draft.
Hmm.
Really good, like blue chip type of guys. And if one comes to us, another team can easily trade up to get that player. I think Chicago's looking for a tackle. There's quite. I mean, right now we're sitting pretty with Icky, but you could always trade back. And if someone's afraid of you taking that type of player, there's always that little incentive to get for them to give more.
Yeah, that's true. On the other hand, someone could be in love with Jalen Walker and trade up to 7 and snatch him from us, right?
Exactly.
Or maybe they trade with us to, who knows? But I kind of agree with you. Like, it doesn't really. There's no advantage to telling everyone who you love, right?
Unless you're the
Like,
number one overall pick, and
yeah,
then it's
right, right. Or you're in that top 5 and you kind of know where the domino is going to fall. But yeah, picking at 8, I would just prefer them to kind of try to keep it a little closer to their vest. But
yeah, we like all these
they're
guys a
excited.
lot.
Yeah, they're excited about these guys. So, all right, well, let's talk about some of these wide receivers here, Jerry. I think you and I are gonna disagree a little bit on who our preference would be here, but let's start with TMac, Tetairoa McMillan.
Yeah, and real quick, all three of these guys have potential and are good, but they're all
Mhm.
so different. That's what I find very intriguing.
Yeah,
Uh, do you want to go ahead and read the profile?
sure. Tetairoa McMillan, a towering, I love that, Jerry, a
Thank
towering
you.
6'4", 219-pound wide receiver from the University of Arizona, hailing from Waimanalo. Oh, I think I actually said that correctly. Hawaii, and later starring at Servite High School in California as a 5-star recruit, became Arizona's highest rated signee ever and quickly lived up to the hype, amassing 213 receptions, 3,423 yards, and 26 touchdowns, making the program's all-time leading receiver. His breakout came as a freshman in 2022 with 702 yards, followed by 1,400-yard sophomore campaign, uh, first team All American junior season in 2024, where he posted 1,319 yards and finished the Bolitnikoff Award finalist. I think in 2022. Yeah, that was his freshman season. He led all first year receivers as well. I was reading earlier.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
guy is like, you know, I think he's easily the number one rated guy in this draft class. But I think if you put him up against some guys like, from last year's class or, honestly, you could say most draft classes, like he's not
eh,
a, this guy is going to be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL in two
no,
years, kind of.
no, he's
And
not Malik Neighbors.
but it's not obvious,
Yeah,
right?
he's not Malik Neighbors. He's not Marvin
Yeah.
Harrison Jr. Those two were like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, this guy's gonna get it. This, and I have seen other play or some big boards have the other two guys above him in a couple. Now, for the most part, the consensus is he is the number
Yeah.
one guy.
I haven't
Um,
seen that at all. I've seen him as the number one guy pretty much everywhere.
well, now I have a player comp in as Mike Evans, and these are what I say about my player comps. If things fall correctly, this is the
Hmm.
type of player. I mean, I'm gonna always try to give you guys someone that you're familiar with. Mike Evans, he's not the fastest guy. He's a big body receiver and everything that goes up and catches the ball in traffic, and can make that play after the catch as well. So that's the ability that this guy has. T-Mac has. Um, Coming from Arizona, 6'4", 219. I mean, the guy's a
He's got
big dude.
great size, great size. His, I mean, I guess his superpower would be his ability to catch contested balls, right? Like that's kind of the
Hmm.
number one thing you hear about him. It's not his speed, He's not the he ran like a 4.5 in the combine, which doesn't concern me overall. But if you're looking for the number one speedster in the class, it's not this guy. Um, but he runs good routes. He can catch the ball. He can high point the ball. I honestly think this is exactly the type of receiver that we need. But let's talk about his cons his pros and cons. It's cons and pros. I guess we'll start with his cons. We'll end with his pros
Yeah.
before we kind of talk about fit. So
Um,
let me go
I'll
with the
do
cons, and I'll let
I'll
you.
do the
Okay, go ahead.
cons because I
Okay,
know you like him a lot. So
okay,
I
go ahead.
let you glow about him.
Go ahead.
Cons: he lacks the elite top end speed. I mean,
Mhm.
at his pro day, he ran a 4.55 by most people's hand clock. Needs to improve his release off the line. He does get stuck in the mud there sometimes. And he needs to sharpen up his cuts on his route breaks. He kind of lackadaisical cuts it. Nothing that screams, oh, big bust. I do also want to bring up, I wrote this actually before the interview came out about, him saying that he didn't watch film and stuff like that. I
Mhm.
don't know. That was supposedly a year or two ago. You don't know how that is. He didn't say he didn't love football. He just says he doesn't watch football and doesn't watch
Right,
film
right,
outside of basically the grouping setting of the wide
right.
receiver room. So,
Which
so
for a wide receiver, that's not a killer
it's
thing.
not a killer. It's a little
It's not
nervous
what
though.
you want to hear,
Yeah.
right? It's not what you want to hear. But he doesn't say he never watches film. He says they watch it as a group.
Hmm.
So, again, I don't know.
I will say this though, when everybody says that, I also think back when Steve Smith and Dwayne Jarrett was in the locker room, and
Hmm.
Dwayne Jarrett was getting an interview, and Steve Smith said, "Why don't you stop talking and actually watch tape?" So that I don't remember the exact verbiage, but that
Yeah.
was basically what it was saying.
You
And
got you got PTSD from Dwayne Jarrett all this time later.
no, 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 no. But don't draft a
No.
USC receiver. No.
Yeah, yeah, right. All right, so let's talk about his pros. I mean, obviously, extremely productive in college, 26 touchdowns, 3,500 yards almost, just ridiculous. He knows how to play with it. He knows how to use his body, right? Plays with size and his strength. He adjusts routes to coverage. He's a very intelligent wide receiver from all accounts.
Yeah.
Um, Helps his QB out on scramble drills. He knows where to go. Huge catch radius, great body control. And he can play the outside, so he can be your X, or he can play as a big slot. I mean, he's pretty versatile with where you can line him up. I would just say his lack of elite speed does not concern me really at all, given what the Panthers need. Um, the Panthers have their speed guy. They drafted a guy last year who runs a 4.3.
Yeah.
Okay. They've got their possession guy, which I think would be probably Jalen Coker or Adam Thielen. Like those are two guys that are going to get you that first down when you need it.
And I think when Adam Thielen retires next year,
Hmm.
that's just kind of my assumption
Within
is
the
that,
next couple of years, yeah.
yeah, he's going to retire. I think Jalen Coker is going to slide into that type of good route running, has a little quick speed, can
Hmm.
get that first down. I do think that that's his type of role, and
Yeah.
that's not a knock. That's a great role to have. So I
We
see what
need
you're
we
saying.
Well, let me just say, we need what Dave Canales says we need, right? He talked about this. We need a guy who's going to go out there and catch touchdowns. And I think McMillan is going to be he could easily get 15 touchdowns. That could be his average per season. Like he is a guy who's going to go up, make those tough catches. I think he is built for the red zone in the NFL. That's what we need. Like that is what the Panthers need. That Bryce needs that reliable red zone threat. And I think TMac could be that guy. Uh, that's one of the kind of the knocks on Xavier Legette is he didn't catch a lot of touchdowns in college. He did okay for us last year. What did he catch, 4 or 5
Mm-hmm.
touchdowns last year? But I think T Mac could really kind of round out this receiver room in a way that would give us kind of one of each type of guy that you need.
And I will say this as well, that Dave Canales has worked with the big body type of receivers. Granted, DK Metcalf had extraordinary speeds for that size.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like DK Metcalf and Mike Evans really flourished with
hmm
Dave Canales. So if that's the type of guy he wants to bring in, I have no problem. Again, you got to go with what you know, what you feel about these guys. And if Canales
yeah.
feels that way about him, I'm all for it. When I first watched his tape, I really liked him, but then I started watching more and more. I kind of like fell out of favor with his speed, but he is a good receiver, and if that's what they want, a big body type of guy, he's great at it.
Yeah, and again, the speed just doesn't concern me. Like he plays faster than that in the game. He can get away from guys. He's not a slow
Oh
person.
no, he
It's a 4.5, which 10 years ago would have been considered very, very fast, right? Like or 20 years ago, whatever the case is. Like
what
he's
was
not
that
a
guy?
slow receiver.
What was that guy that ran like a 4.9 or something recently? Like supposedly he was going to be a
Oh,
second
the
round pick
was it
or
the Miami receiver?
oh yeah, Xavier
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
Respatito or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Oh yeah, like that guy killed himself. Like 4.55 is, oh god, that's
Four
lightning.
five
If you
five is fine, right?
like,
That's
that's
average.
lightning if you watch him in person. But
Right,
compared
right.
to some of the
Yeah,
other
all,
guys,
all these all these people out there going, "Oh, he ran a 4.5. He's gonna suck." All right, no, he's not. He's gonna be fine. And by the way, like he's not a guy who's gonna burn you down the field, and that's what you need that top end speed for. So
yeah.
I like Ted a lot. Don't call him Ted. I like TMac a lot. But I like these next two guys we're gonna talk about a lot too.
Yes. Moving on, we're gonna look at wide receiver Luther Burden the third out of Missouri here. Luther Burden the third, I don't know why I keep saying the third. Like everyone's gonna be like, getting him mixed up with the junior. A dynamic wide receiver from Missouri enters the 2025 NFL draft as a highly touted prospect known for his explosive playmaking ability and versatility. During his standout sophomore season in 2023, he racked up 86 receptions, 1,212 yards, and 9 touchdowns, earning first team All SEC honors, showcasing his elite yards after catch skills. Though his production dipped in 2024 due to a struggling Tigers passing game, his combination of speed and agility, reliable hands make him a projected first-round pick and potential to thrive as a slot receiver or multiple-faceted offensive weapon in the NFL. My player comp to him is someone we know here very well, high end, like a DJ Moore, where he didn't have
hmm
the best quarterback in college, so that affected his production, especially in his seniors or his last season there.
Yep.
But he's just so versatile with the ball in his hands. He makes those plays after the catch.
Yeah, I mean, I like this guy a lot, and I was listening to Steve Smith talk about wide receivers, and he really likes him too. And he kind of was like, unfortunately, he did have a bad quarterback, or not a good
Mm-hmm.
quarterback, I guess, his final year of college, and that is probably going to ding him a little bit. But this is a guy, if he put up the same numbers he put up in 2023, where he had 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, if he did that again, he'd probably be right up there with
Yeah,
T-Mac as the potential number one receiver in the class. Um, but yeah, he's got that he's got that thing that DJ Moore has, where like when the ball gets in his hands, watch out, right?
yeah.
He kind
He's
of
a
becomes
difference.
like the running back, right? Where he can just or a turner, right? Where you just never know what's going to happen.
Correct, and he doesn't play like a typical receiver with the ball in his hand.
hmm
He's 6 foot, 206 pounds. He's not
Yeah,
small, but
right.
he's not tall,
He's
big
not
type.
T-Mac. Yeah.
Yeah. So he runs differently. Like he really did remind me of DJ Moore with the ball in his hands. And that's kind of why I went with that. And then
Yeah.
also bad quarterback play. I was like, oh, that is really DJ Moore in my head.
I saw he had an 85.9% catch rate.
Mm-hmm.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like talk about reliability. That's crazy. Yeah, I like this guy a lot. I'll read through his cons here, since you let me do the pros last time. Cons here: inconsistent finishing routes. Occasionally has the alligator hands. I think he probably meant alligator arms, near traffic. So he has some concentration drops as well. Most of his production was when he was targeted within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. That that's interesting. And then not elite top end speed. So he ran a 4.4. Again, not slow by any means, but not as fast as the next guy we're going to talk about. You are muted, by the way.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I was talking to, yeah, again, the alligator arms and stuff like that. And again, that was just like DJ Moore in college, where his quarterbacks couldn't throw the ball well deep. So they were like, hey, we got a great playmaker. Here's the ball. Go make a play. And he did most times.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that our offense is not going to be, 10 yards, 10 yards or less, right? Like we've seen in the past. But
hey, Bryce Young at the second half of the season had the most big time throws, so they weren't.
He did. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I hope that this offense opens up a lot next year, and this guy would be a really exciting player to watch. And why don't you tell us why, Jerry?
Yeah, he's a compact, powerful frame, plays bigger than his size, like this, DJ Moore and Steve Smith. I mean, those are the type of players you want. He's a solid blocker downfield. He's not scared to mix it up in the run game to get there. I called him the Yak King because, again, you get the ball in his hands, he's dynamic.
Yeah, which is interesting because, when he doesn't have the top end speed, but he just knows how to get away from people and knows how to get by people.
Yeah, he's got that wiggle. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. He catches the ball also with his hands. He doesn't do the body catches, which is something I can't stand.
Yeah.
Especially for NFL receivers.
Right.
And he tracks the ball well in the air, so good things. He has a good first step. Again, it's just, this guy screams DJ Moore to me. I don't know why. And that's not a knock or, that's if we got DJ Moore, great. In my opinion, I really like DJ Moore. He just had bad quarterbacks here.
Yeah. I mean, and again, this would be another guy where, likely you're going to trade back, right, to get him. Picking him at 8 might feel a little high. Just kind of looking at some of the composites for him, like the highest I've seen him in a mock is 9. And, as of a couple of weeks ago, ESPN had him at 44. So
I don't see him falling
pretty wide range. Yeah, I mean, you've got Todd McShay has him at 32, CBS has him at 32, PFF 15, Pro Football Network 10. So he's kind of all like everyone we've talked about so far. Like there's a wide range of possibilities for him on draft day.
You know what I would love to do? I would love to create a website where you compare a current player to the other players in previous drafts, their stock, not necessarily the stock, but their combine and their stat records. That way you can really have a good comp instead of me just seeing the guy play and being like, oh, that's good. Does that make sense? And then you can click on them and look up other ones and have a comparative comparison tool.
Start working with ChatGPT and create that website.
Yeah,
now people can do it now very quickly.
Well, I'm just saying because right now whenever I buy things, I use comparison tools, and it that would seem like a very cool idea to have.
Yeah. Do you use Honey?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I used to, but
they're scams.
I was gonna say I used to try, but nothing actually was.
Don't use Honey. They do not. We do not represent them on this podcast.
Okay.
There's no sponsorship.
No, not sponsorship.
Actually, so between Luther Burton III and TMac, who do you have higher between those two?
I really don't know. I could see both being really
very
good
different
in this
players.
Offense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see where you're going TMac, and I'm not going to argue that. I think TMac is a sure thing of a. I think both of these guys are surefire starters in this league.
Mm-hmm.
I do see where TMac has a potential to be higher, so I'll go TMac.
Yeah, ceiling might be a little high. I mean, especially for this team. Like I think that's kind of where we get like if we didn't have I don't know because Luther he does things that we don't have on the team either. So I don't know. It's interesting. I would be happy with either one of them. I'll just say that.
Yeah, me too.
Uh,
I again, all three of the guys we're talking about right now, I don't think any team that
yeah,
drafts him are gonna hate it.
yeah,
I'll put it that way. I think all these guys are starters, and I don't think any of these guys have a really low floor. Obviously, you have that issue that divas and everything else, but
sure. Who knows once they get in the locker room what's going to happen? But none of these guys seem to have character issues that I've heard of. Like that they haven't been arrested
oh no no
that I
no
know of, right? Like that. No, there's no like sexual assault histories or anything like that. So I think, and by the way, there have been plenty of wide receivers drafted fairly high who have those things.
yeah no,
So
I think it was Luther and the person we're talking about next, Matthew Golden, that
mhm.
has a not concentration drop, but when the ball doesn't go all the time to them, they kind of just start to slack off a little bit.
I heard somebody say that about T-Mac as well. Like if he's not the focal point of the offense, he's not as productive. But the only time he wasn't the focal point of the offense was his freshman year, where he led all freshmen in receiving. So I don't know if I co-sign that or not, but
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
yeah.
and you have to take that with a grain of salt. I mean, especially you're playing at Missouri and you're getting your butt spanked by Alabama.
Right. With a crappy quarterback. Like, yeah. Right.
How hard are you really fighting?
Exactly. Exactly. You're just trying to get through healthy so you can get drafted.
Yeah.
All
Uh,
right. Well, let's move on to the third guy here.
well, actually, let's take a quick break and then we will be right back.
Okay.
And we are back. But for you listeners, it was literally just beep, beep. All right. Our last player we're going to take a quick look at today is wide receiver Matthew Golden out of Texas. He's a speedy wide receiver from Texas, enters the 2025 draft as a rising star after leading the Longhorns with 58 receptions and 907 yards and 9 touchdowns in his lone season with the team in 2024. Known for his blazing 4.29 40-yard dash in the NFL Combine, the fastest among receivers,
Mhm.
combines elite speed with crisp route running and reliable hands, making him a versatile threat capable of stretching defenses deep or creating separation underneath. Though his production was modest in his first 2 years of college, at Houston, his breakout junior campaign and big game performance, like his 162-yard game showing against Georgia at the SEC Championship, solidified his status as a projected first-round pick and immediate impact potential.
Steve Smith has him as his number one receiver.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, dude's
But I
lightning in
want
a bottle.
he is he's got the elite trait, right? He's got the thing that he does better than anybody else in this class, and that's speed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've seen fast guys in the NFL a whole lot, and they don't always work out. Um, but his college production is weird, right? You know, 58 receptions for 987 yards, 9 touchdowns is his best season by far. 17 yards a catch is nice. That's really high. But the other two seasons, 38 catches in both,
I mean,
404 yards in 23, and 584 in 22.
I mean, he was playing at Houston.
Yeah, but why wouldn't he be the alpha there?
Mm,
You know,
yeah,
um,
I mean,
I
yeah.
don't know. The fact that he had his best season in the SEC is definitely a great thing, right? And that Georgia, I mean, I watched the game against Georgia, and he was absolutely dominant. He was great. So I don't know.
5'11", 191,
Yeah,
191 pounds. I mean, he's a smaller guy.
yeah, but that's not.
No, no,
He's not
that's not.
small,
No,
right?
no, no.
He's fine. He's not 5'9", 5'8". He's 5'11". That's fine. He's barely shorter than the than Luther, who we just talked about. You've got his player comp here is Chris Olave.
Mm-hmm.
That I think tracks. Is Chris Olave that fast?
Yeah, Chris Olave was really fast. I think he ran
Yeah.
like a 4.29 too. Let me
Did he?
actually look
Okay.
that up. But
Yeah, I don't remember
uh,
what he ran, but Chris Olave's been a productive pro.
yeah,
This again would be a guy who I don't know if you want to take him at 8. I think you can get him later, but again, you got to have somebody that's willing to trade back, so or trade up. So who knows? But we could use a Chris Olave on this team,
yeah.
right?
I
We
mean,
could use a
he's a
guy like
different
that.
style receiver. He's that
Yeah,
stretch guy that this team, in my opinion, doesn't have. Even though
yeah.
Leggett ran that 4.3, he still really
That's the
didn't
thing,
stretch.
though. Like Leggett, he certainly didn't play that way last year.
He was injured with an ankle and a wrist most of the
He
season,
was.
and,
He
and I'm
was.
trying. I don't want to write him off because he also took
No,
some
no, no,
time.
no, no.
He took some time in college to come out. So
Yeah.
like, just give
Yeah,
him
and
time.
certainly not saying that we should write off Xavier Leggett at all. And in fact, if the Panthers don't end up drafting a wide receiver here in the first, 2 rounds, say, it's very likely that Xavier Leggett is going to be the focal point of the offense
Mm-hmm.
next season. So, and I don't necessarily hate that. Like I would actually be fine seeing what he can grow into. Right? I think he could. Maybe he takes that and runs with it. But let's look at the cons real quick here for Matthew Golden. I'll go through them. I think you like him a little more than I do, although I do like him. Um, Cons needs to work on his route tree. I think that's probably a common thing with guys that are super, super fast,
Yeah,
right?
I mean
Because they,
because
they don't have to run precise routes, especially in college.
well, he runs crisp routes. He runs good routes. It's just he
He doesn't run
needs.
a lot of them.
Yeah, he he needs to work on a few more than just to go.
But coaches are gonna like they know they've got a mismatch and they're gonna exploit it, right? So that's probably all he was allowed to do. Needs to play stronger. Well, he's a small guy. He'll bulk up a little bit, we hope.
Yeah, I mean,
Relies too heavily on athleticism to get off his release. Again, he's
it,
got the God-given speed.
yeah, he's just got to work on some of his hand fighting and stuff like that off the line. And that's just the NFL.
Hmm.
He's not going to be able to rely strictly on speed.
Yeah. As you mentioned earlier, his focus can kind of go in and out a bit when he's not, the focus of the play. But I think the main con with me would be, medical concerns, especially given his stature and everything. He had a foot injury in 2023, rib injuries. So this guy has got a bit of an injury history. Nothing major, I don't think. I don't know what that foot injury was. Do you know? Was it
I
like a
don't
Liz
know. He
Frank or
did
something,
have to
was it?
get foot surgery though.
Okay,
So,
don't love that. Don't
I
love
mean,
that.
he came back and had his best season. So,
Yeah, yeah, but that, foot surgery for a speed guy, that is concerning. You don't know what the
I
strength is in that, what the durability is going to be. But there are reasons to really like him.
yes, incendiary speed.
Mm,
For those older
good word.
folks, that was from a Steve Smith ESPN commercial, and I had to look up the spelling because I could not spell it.
I watched that commercial not long ago. That's a great commercial.
That's a hilarious commercial. Any of those who have not seen that should really go back and watch it. Look,
You
Steve
should,
Smith
yeah,
ESPN commercial.
find the super cut of all the This Is Sports Center commercials. They're all great.
They've are
They're all great. Yeah.
a difference maker in big games. He didn't shy away from big games. He made the big plays, and that's something that a lot of guys get quiet on. And I really do appreciate when there's a spotlight and the big players make big plays. And I
Hmm.
just love that. Great hands and body control. Sidelines, he can get his feet down. He still catches the ball. So he's not just speed. He has the wide receiver ability. He's not, what was it, Jeff Ross? Ross from Cincinnati that ran like that 4.25 or something
Mm,
like that, but that's all he could do was
all he
run
could do.
fast.
Yeah. Darius Hayward Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great field vision once the ball is in his hands. He could see the field well. Nasty route runner who sells his breaks could make quarterbacks look foolish. And if you watch his highlight film, a lot of his catches, he's completely wide open. And that's because he broke ankles previously on that route.
Mm. Yeah.
He makes guys look foolish.
Yeah.
And he could be a returner again because of his great field vision when he has the ball in his hands. So if you need that extra oomph or that playmaker, he has that ability as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems most of his pros are speed related, right? But he does have good hands. And I watched like a supercut of highlights from him, and it seemed like at times his quarterback, which was a Ewers, his
Quinn
quarterback, I think.
Ewers and
Yeah.
Arch Manning were both his
And Arch
quarterbacks.
Manning. But it seemed like they could never really dial him in. Like they were either underthrowing him. In fact, they were pretty much always underthrowing. Like he always seemed to have to come back to the ball. Um, Bryce does not have the strongest arm, right? Um, but I think
He has
he
great
can
ball
certainly
placement.
he could certainly get the ball to him where it needs to go. And I think Bryce's timing, his ability to hit guys where they need to be. This could be really nasty if Matthew Golden is the pick.
Yeah, and I do want to say Matthew Golden did a top 30 pick here, or top 30 visit here. That's also
Yeah.
why I wanted to make sure I got him in here, because
Yeah.
when I read that, I did more research on him because I was like, oh, if they're going out of their way to bring him in, yeah, they have
Yeah.
serious interest, and I agree. I think this would be so special to bring him in. Then you have Leggett, that's a big body guy. Coker, who's that route runner underneath guy with Thielen. I think that would be a really nasty 1-2-3 in the future. Obviously, Thielen right now, but
Not having our second round pick is it kind of sucks because I feel like several of these guys would be flirting around that you know mid 30s area. I
see.
see.
I don't.
Just
I
kind
don't
of.
think Golden will be
I'm
there.
not
I don't
saying
think.
I'm not saying him specifically, but I'm
Oh,
saying, you know, some of these guys would be around there, and they do have. I think Pro Football Network has them in the low 30s. Um, several places, McShay, PFF, SI have him, late 20s, 27, all of them to be exact. So, this is a guy that's kind of going, it seems mostly mid to late 20s with a couple of outliers, one at 13 and one at 36. So, again, these are just mocks, right?
yeah,
This is
yeah.
just where people have them, but nobody has them at 8. So, again, I think this is another person where you're probably trading down to draft him if you can. Um, but yeah, I mean, I like guys, guys like this don't come around too often that are this fast.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And
so
has the ability to catch the ball and field vision. That's a
yeah.
big thing. Route
And
running
he can get up
speed.
and catch the ball too, even with his size. Like he can get up and get the ball.
Yeah.
Like he does have good catch point awareness. That's not a term, but I'm gonna say it is.
Yeah,
Catch point awareness.
it sounds good to me. Like it makes it understand what you're talking about. Again, I
Yeah.
like all three of these guys. Do I like them all at 8? No, but I would be happy with any one of these guys on the team. I think any of these guys can make Bryce Young have a better receiving core for the future.
Yeah. Agreed. It'll be interesting. I don't it doesn't seem like they would pick a wide receiver at 8.
Mm-mm.
As much as I think TMac has a chance to go top 10, it just feels like there are going to be guys there, especially defensively, that the Panthers are just going to be more focused on.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's fine. That's fine. But man, I would love to get one of these guys. I think that would be so good for Bryce's development to have a top tier weapon, especially like, I mean, again, I like T-Mac the most of these guys, and I think what he brings would be so beneficial to Bryce. But all of these guys have traits that would be extremely beneficial to this team.
And you never know. Maybe they do trade back to 12, 13, 14, something somewhere
Yeah.
around that. Maybe pick up a second round pick, package those two, come back in the late first, and
Yeah.
and pick one of the guys. I think T Mac would be gone at that point, but like a Luther Burden or a Matthew Golden.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I
either that or you trade back into the mid teens and you take the quarterback or excuse me, the wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
You take one of the guys. Yeah, I don't know that one thing Canales has said is that the work that they did in the offseason to get, the defense kind of shored up does open up their possibilities, right? They're not necessarily having to take a defensive player here in the first round.
And I do like the way they attack the offseason. I think they did it last year and this year very smartly, where you
Mm-hmm.
shore up as much as you can without blowing your load to a certain extent
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
and then you have, okay, who's the best available of a position need, like let's
Yeah.
attack there. And
Yeah.
that's, I feel like that's what they did. I know it wasn't a all-star staff, but Pat Jones adds depth. I think Brown is a nasty nose tackle. I think, just those type of players.
It's all guys, yeah, it's all guys who are coming off their best seasons and seem to be on the up, right?
Yeah.
So they're not taking the all pros, but they're taking maybe potential future pro bowlers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we ended up doing this offseason. Will it work out? Some of them
I,
probably will,
I
you
think
know?
it will. I think what their plan was, in my eyes, was a very smart approach to the offseason.
Yeah.
Our defense was garbage. Absolute historic
Hmm.
garbage. I mean, you could smell it from 3 states away, garbage.
Yeah.
And what they did is they just shored it up. They were like, hey, we just wanted to try to get to the middle of the pack right now. And then what we'll do
Sure.
is we're going to draft some guys that we can become our stalwarts. We have J.C. Horn we have Derek Brown under contract.
Hmm.
Let's build around those defensive playmakers and get a couple more. And I think that's what they did.
Yeah. It just feels like Jalen Walker is probably the right pick, right?
It, it
If
really
they stay at
does.
8, it feels like he's the right pick. Get that guy that can be one of your defensive anchors,
The
a
smart
culture
leadership.
guy.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it just feels like that's the right pick. Um, but we'll see. That they could, if they trade back, I think anything is possible,
I mean, yeah.
right? If they stay at 8, it feels like he or one of those other defensive guys we've talked about is probably the pick.
Yeah. That's unfortunately that's what it is. And
Yeah. And it might not be, I mean, unfortunately that we kind of know what it is, right? But
it's not
fortunate
fun
that
and
we could get a
exciting
player
for
like
our
that.
podcast, but
No, but
you know it will be
we'll be
when
stoked on that
we
night.
win.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if Jalen Walker can be a guy that leads your defense, and if we can hold teams to 160 rushing yards next year, phew, that's going to be such an improvement.
I mean, think about it. We're getting Derek Brown back. I
Yeah.
mean, Ashawn Robinson isn't going to have to do everything. Brown is going to be just that man eater up front. I do worry
Yeah.
about that linebacker position with, the outlaw Josie Jewell and oh god, I can't think of our rookie from last year.
Trevin Wallace.
Trevin Wallace. I was like TW. Why
Yeah, but Jalen Walker also,
can
was
play
kind of a hybrid
inside?
player, right?
Yeah,
He can
and then
play
you could
linebacker.
have Clowney, Wanham, and Walker out there at the same time,
Yeah,
and that could be what they're thinking as well.
yeah, yeah. And this is a pretty good defensive draft. Like, even if they don't get Jalen Walker in the first round, they could get a guy in the second or third round who could end up being, an every down starter at some point.
I mean, the Campbell kid out of
Hmm.
Alabama, I saw him going in the late first. I mean, that's
Yeah.
another kid.
Yeah. So there are options here, but it seems like a couple of quarterbacks are going to go, a couple of tackles are going to go. You've got Abdul Carter who's going to go. Like there are the top like five or six are probably fairly set. So it just kind of depends on what those couple of teams do ahead of us, really.
Yeah. I got a quick question. Do you think is there two or one quarterback? I know we're gonna do a draft bet
Yeah.
game like we always do. Do you think two quarterbacks go above us?
Yeah. I think Ward and Sanders go.
You think?
I don't I think I see some people saying Sanders is going to drop, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think
Somebody's
so.
going to get excited about him.
He has that pedigree. I mean,
Yeah.
he has talent. He's not just pedigree, but
He seems to be pretty certain he's going to the Giants. I don't know. Who knows if that's the case, but he's making noises like he's going to the Giants. Maybe wishful thinking, but maybe he's been told something. I don't know.
you never know. I mean, Leggett said he was going to Carolina last year.
Yeah. I mean, Kay Adams basically asked Jalen Walker about Carolina, and he like seemed excited. So I don't know. He's from Salisbury, Jalen
I
Walker.
didn't know that. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe I forgot about that when we did his profile, and I
Yeah, I
deleted.
did. I must have as well because when I saw it today, I was like, oh, I'm sure we talked about it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Actually, now I think about it, I do remember
Yeah.
seeing Salisbury there,
Yeah.
right up the road.
Yep. Yep. All right.
All right. We want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at Meowmix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. Leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube.
We'll be back hopefully next week talking about something. Maybe we'll do another mock draft. Try to
Doing our
redeem
mock draft.
ourselves.
I also kind of want to talk about some of the second round type of receivers.
Yeah.
OSU's guy who kind of reminds me of JSN.
Okay.
When,
Okay.
when I say that, I mean, God, it's like if you look at his draft profile,
Mhm.
they're same. They're the
Wow.
same.
Hey, JSN's pretty good.
No, I agree. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you could
Yeah,
get him
maybe
at the
we'll do
second,
something. Maybe we'll do something where we talk about some second, third round guys that we both like. Maybe we'll pick like three each or something. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But until then, everybody stay safe out there and keep pounding.